So first portion of this is live content, radio, TV, online. Second portion will be a bargain written word. Following that first portion, TV guys, you're going into the hallway here. Anyone online, you guys are going into the main kind of thoroughfare there. Okay, and clearing things will start happening. If we've got anyone recording on a mobile phone, can we make sure it's on flight mode, please? And we will get underway with head coach announcing the team for the weekend. Thank you.
The team to start this Saturday against England is Ken Healy, Rory Best, Tyke Furlong, Dev Toner, James Ryan, Peter O'Mahony, Josh van der Fleer and CJ Stander. Rory Best obviously is captain. And then in the back line it's Connor Murray, Johnny Sexton, Jacob Stockdale, Bundy Arkey, Gary Ringrose, Keith Earls and Robbie Henshaw. The replacements are Sean Cronin, Dave Kilcoyne, Andrew Porter, Quinn Rue, Sean O'Brien, John Cooney, Joey Carberry and Jordan Lama.
Joel, what's your thinking behind Robbie after that?
Robbie trained last week. He trained in November, a little bit of fullback, so he actually trained a little bit in Australia, so it's been something that has been an option for us for quite some time, and Rob ran out of time a little bit, and we like the flexibility of Jordan on the bench, covering a number of positions. I thought he came on really well last season against England, coming into 13 and having to play the last 35 minutes. So, yeah, it's one of those things that we've seen as an option for quite some time. So it's probably not as much of a surprise to Robbie or the team as it maybe is to other people.
Yeah, not much of a surprise, but is it still a risk considering his lack of game time at international level?
Yeah, it's probably more risk is lack of game time, full stop. He hasn't actually played that much himself. We got to a situation where we had a few different options there, and really we just felt the way he trained when we were away and the way he's trained this week, that it was worth pursuing. You know, maybe even as a longer term option, just with guys needing, when you get to go 31 to World Cup, you need guys who can be versatile, and it's probably a little bit of that, as well as Robbie being a good player and a recognised fullback anyway.
Is Rob still struggling with injury, or is it purely a form?
He's coming up to speed. He's trained really well this week, piece by piece. He's a little bit slow on Monday, better on Tuesday, sharp today. So we would expect that Rob will continue to make progress in that particular direction. He's only had that one game against Scarlets, and you know, it was probably just a bit of rustiness that we saw in that game that helped tip the balance and give Robbie that opportunity, and in contrast to Rob.
And the selection of Robbie, you alluded to it there slightly. Does that suggest you have one eye on the World Cup, even though it's England at home starting off the Six Nations?
You've always got one eye on different things, but you've got one mind, one focus, and that is England. And so we think Robbie Henshaw is a good option to play against England, and we think he'll acquit himself really well there. So, you know, it is short-term focused, but with to offer us a hint in the long term whether that's something Robbie's capable or comfortable to do.
Are you comfortable with England probably targeting him now tomorrow?
Yeah, you know, if they do, I'm pretty sure Robbie's got a pretty good response for that. You know, and I don't think anyone in our backfield is left alone. I think Keith and Jacob and Jordan, if he's on, they'll offer plenty of support as well. So, you know, I think that's part of the collective effort that you expect.
Joe, just with Joey Carberry on the bench and his move to Munster in general, how pleased have you been with how he's performed there, and does it really give you a selection headache at 10?
Yeah, you hope you get more selection headaches. I could certainly say that Jack Carty's really impressed me. Jack has slotted in incredibly well, and in the conversation I had with Ross before the Six Nations squad was announced, I think he's going really well as well. So I think the more we can build depth in that position, the more confident we are, the more we see players in that position, the more confident they are, and the better our depth is. And if Johnny feels a bit of pressure, that's great. I think Johnny puts enough pressure on himself, to be honest. He doesn't need somebody else right behind him. And at the same time, Joey wants to apply that pressure, and so does Jack, and so does Ross.
Did Sean O'Brien come close to making the team, or what did that?
Yeah, Sean always comes close to making teams when he's available. And I think it's just that he hasn't been available for quite some time, and we want him to be able to kind of get a bit of a feel of the match, have a bit of a look at it first, and then get out there and make the difference that he can. We know how robust he is out there. We know how much pressure he can put on the ball. We know how well he carries. And so we want him to bring all that. And he's incredibly game intelligent, Sean, as well. And so having that in that last quarter will be really important to us. So they've got a great bench, I think, and we've got a good bench. And I think that's, that final quarter is probably where the game's going to be decided, because inevitably in these games there hasn't been too much between the sides in that first 3 quarters of the game.
Joe, as a coach, do you take it, I suppose, as a bit of a compliment how much England have been trying to get under the skins of the Irish this week? That old boring comments, Sexton having the bat phone to referees. I know you've spoken about that before, but as a coach, because of where you are now with Ireland as sort of favourites and everything else, all those tags, is it more of a compliment to you that they're trying to?
I don't think so. It's just people have different approaches. I think it's incredibly important to respect your opponents. I think it's incredibly important to acknowledge what abilities they bring to the game, and I don't think for a moment that it's going to be boring. I think it's going to be incredibly exhilarating. I think it's going to be edge of the seat, because I don't think there's going to be a huge amount between the two teams. And so, I do think people are going to be entertained. And one of the great things about being in the Aviva Stadium is the entertainment is partially provided by those outside the pitch supporting the team in the manner that they do. I think the support that we got in those last few minutes, last time England were here, until that ball was lost forward by Mike Brown, was huge. It was as loud as I'd heard it since 2013, probably, when the All Blacks were here, and probably the loudest I've heard since is the All Blacks in November, when, again, those last phases of play until Brodie Retallick put that ball down. It was huge. And so, I think the players feed off that excitement, and it's almost reciprocated by the crowd. And we know we're going to have a big crowd in, and we know that they're going to be incredibly supportive and at the same time respectful of our team and our opponents.
And given that 6 English clubs went out of Europe, not going through to the quarterfinals, where do you sort of see the mentality of the players coming here?
Yeah, I don't think it really affects them too much. When Wales were going well and winning championships, their teams weren't really qualifying very often at all. I think Ospreys qualified once, and apart from that, they weren't really qualifying. It was post the Scarlets era where they made those semis. So, I do think that the two aren't necessarily closely linked. We'd like to think they're closely linked for us, because we've got 4 teams in those playoffs, and teams that have worked really hard to get to where they are, and they've been well coached and well prepared to get to where they are. And we hope that there's a little bit of a positive spin for us in that respect. But I don't think for a moment that the England team as a national team will be affected by clubs not qualifying.
Joe, is any of what England have been saying about you, has any of that been disrespectful?
I don't really know everything they've been saying. I heard the boring comment. I heard the bat phone comment. you know, I don't know what else I've been saying. All I can keep doing is keep my head down, keep making sure that I try to find the fine margins and try to support players as best I can to get them as well prepared as I can. So it doesn't distract me because it's not immediately relevant to what I'm doing. But you know, I'll see. You know, I've known Mitch for a long time, so it would be good to catch up with him, and then the banter can be face to face, and if there's something that needs to be said, it can be said, and it'll be said with a light-hearted bit of repartee, I would think.
Joe, sorry, Joe. When you always emphasise the importance of discipline, do you have to talk about the players about the Leinster-Munster match? I think 14 Ireland players gave away 16 penalties. Is that a good example to talk to the team about of how you don't really give yourself a chance if you lose your discipline?
To be honest, I didn't reference anything in particular. I think it's just, I think it's part of what we try to deliver anyway. So it's embedded in how we try to approach the game, how we try to approach our preparation. You know, we have referees in once a week, especially in our big defensive day on a Tuesday. And we had John Lacey this week, for example, and sometimes it's Andrew Brace. You know, those guys, I think Frank might come in at some stage, and those guys, you know, it's great to have them in, and they can chip away at the players as well, and try to just, I suppose, help develop those good habits.
David, how close is that England starting 15 to the one that notionally you thought you would be facing? Were there any surprises in the team that Eddie's picked?
No, not really. I know he's, you know, some of those players. I think George Crew is there, you know, because he is a real intellect at the line out, and so that's a real challenge for our line out, having George Crew there. Because Courtney Laws, we know how good he is. So for him to be forced to the bench, that's a big vote of confidence probably for George Crew. Mark Wilson, it went really well for them in November, so there's no surprise there. And Tom Curry has gone really well. I mean, he's a young kid, but we've had some young kids come in last year's Six Nations tournament and do really well. And when those young players get that vote of confidence, they often respond and repay it. And so, there's no real surprise there. There were a couple of injury concerns during the week. Obviously, Jack Clifford made the 7 decision more easily made. I think Benteo having an injury meant Manu came in. That was a little bit simpler. I think in the last quarter, you've got an absolute class out half in George Ford. He's likely to come in, and maybe they'll push Owen out and start to expand their game a little bit. All those things, you're trying to second guess what they might do, but I think from 1 to 23, they've got a very strong squad, and it allows them to play in whatever manner they choose. I think I mentioned earlier in the week or last week, Marco coming around the corner, followed by Billy Vunipola, Manu taking a hard line, and then Nathan Hughes pops off the bench for a stroll. That's some real firepower, and we're going to have to be up for that challenge.
Okay, folks.
Sorry, just one for Tyke. Just Ireland now coming off the back of the All Blacks game, already champions, reigning champions. Are you all comfortable now as a squad that you are the favourites for the Six Nations and you want to win another Grand Slam?
Yeah, I suppose, look, as a player group, you don't massively think about big picture a lot of the time. Like got together last week, it was trying to reintegrate, trying to nail down our roles. This week it's a massive game. It's the opening game of the Six Nations at home. So a lot of time you probably lose the wood in the trees, or whatever that saying is. But
can't see the wood for the trees.
Yeah. But I suppose you just focus on your role and try to get out there and make a good start to the tournament.
Okay. Thanks, guys. So, radio online, interview outside,
Can't
TV.
see the wood for the trees.